Welcome to 5 Minutes, your quick dive into the wide-ranging world of insurance, technology, and leadership. I'm Miguel Edwards, and I'll be your guide as we explore these topics that are transforming not just the insurance industry, but the business world at large. Along with sharing observations I've made over the span of my career in insurance, technology, and operations, I'll be chatting with some of the brightest minds in business and leadership. Whether you're a seasoned executive or a rising star, an industry expert, or just curious about how technology is revolutionizing insurance, this is your perfect spot for your weekly dose of insights. This is 5 Minutes. One of the challenges, love your reaction to this, that I faced is when I took my leap and I'm still getting calls, tempting calls by the recruiters. Hey, why don't you come be the CIO of this company? And why not try this out? And it was kind of interesting because there's this dichotomous thought process. One side of it says, dang, a paycheck would be really nice right now while I'm kind of sitting here counting the money and, how long is this going to last, so on and so forth. But then on the other side is, what the heck is going to be different with that role? What is the CIO of another insurance company really going to feel like that's going to be materially different than my past two CIO roles? And is that going to somehow give me what has been missing? And you keep saying freedom. You keep saying that. And it's funny. I've got an idea of what that means for me. What does that mean for you and your clients when you talk about this freedom of being a consultant and entrepreneurship? Because that's a dynamic. It's hard to put a value on it until you have it.
That's right. Boy, it's so well said that you just teed that up that way, because I equate freedom then translate to happiness. Okay. And so if in our professional journey, look, fulfillment and happiness are goals, right? Those are aspirations that I have, that if in my professional career journey, I can figure out happiness and fulfillment. Fulfillment is around the work itself, right? Like, hey, I feel like I'm doing a good job, and
right.
I've got great feedback from clients or customers or whatever that is. And happiness then is translated back to ultimately, though, the freedom to be able to do things like work with the people that I choose to work with, but not work with the people I don't choose to work with.
Oh, yeah.
Right? In the corporate world, in the 9-to-5 world, we don't choose who. Now, granted, like the roles you've been in and the roles I've been in the past, we can hire and so forth but for the majority of folks, that's not the case.
Right.
So work with the people, we call that people freedom. There's this notion of legacy freedom. You have children, I have children. And legacy freedom is this concept that we talk about, which is what legacy do we want to leave those who are after us and our children, our family? And do we want to leave a legacy that where in my past, I'm sure it's not unlike your past, where when my children were small, I was a corporate executive. I was kind of a rising corporate executive star, and I did not spend a lot of time at home.
That's right.
I was based out of Southern California for a period of that time, and I traveled the country, and I was on a lot of airplanes. And they saw Dad as being someone who went to the airport with a suitcase and, and flew to, the Midwest or the East Coast or wherever I was going. And then 3 or 4 or 5 days later came back home.
Right.
And we got to spend some time on the weekends. Now, legacy freedom looks a lot different.
Right.
My office right here is in my home. And so when my in fact, here in a few minutes, I'll go pick my children up from school today. Now I have a 16-year-old and he is driving now. He has a vehicle, but there's 2 feet of snow on the ground. And so I said, it's probably best that you get Dad's 4-wheel drive to come pick you up.
Yeah.
But those are some of the freedoms, right? That legacy freedom looks a lot different now that they see Dad for the last 9 years as an entrepreneur, helping other businesses and helping other individuals to accelerate and elevate their own professional journey.
Yep.
And so looks a lot different than the 9-to-5 world. So those are 2 of, there's actually 5 different freedoms that I can kind of walk through, but those are a couple of them that I would highlight.
I love that. Great. And it's funny. I just had this experience a couple of weeks ago where I had somebody call me up and asked me if I could consult on a job. And it's funny because I turned it down, not because I didn't want to work with this individual, but it's just not my core, and it's just not what I do. And it was really interesting when I got off that call, I realized, man, I just said no. Mm. I don't like, I can't remember kind of like in my employed life, when I was able to say no and not deal with some repercussion, that type of thing.
Totally.
And so it's a very, very liberating feeling. And, at the end of the day, I could have done what they asked me to do. But I felt like it would have stretched me too much. I would have had to learn a lot about that particular topic. Thank you for joining this episode of 5 Minutes. If you've enjoyed our discussion, we'd love for you to share it with anyone else you think might find it interesting. Also, please subscribe on whatever podcast platform you're listening on and hit that bell to stay on top of the game with our practical 5-minute episodes. We look forward to seeing you again next week.